Thank you very much for your time and for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you, and good morning to the viewers of ENCA.
Right, so what are the key things we should be paying attention to? We know that the Northwest is also having their provincial list conference elections as the same time that the national conference is ongoing in Durban. We know that there was a postponement of the national conference that was set to have taken place in December already. Western Cape didn't quite run smoothly, having to rerun their elections. What does this all say about the broader context of where the ANC is now heading into the elections?
Well, a list conference is very important to a ruling party because it sets the pace for a provincial to national and a national to national list. It's also an opportunity for the party to sort of re-engage members who have been cast out of the ANC, or to engage younger leaders that they can take to parliament or new structures of governance. But also it's an opportunity for the party to look at what has been achieved in the last 5 years, how its members have performed. This particular NEC meeting and this particular list conference is crucial because it is exactly a year after Nasrec. And I'm hoping or thinking that there will be some NEC members who look back and say, what has the ANC achieved in the last year? Have we skipped our policy proposals, or have we tried to get to them in some way? Is there a policy shift in the ANC so far as radical economic transformation is concerned, which is a policy of the ANC, the expropriation of land without compensation, the nationalization of the Reserve Bank? Are we closer to those policies, or are we even further than we were when we left Nasrec? So this is the first official gathering where minds come together and say, well, where are we? And a list conference is very important because the people you put on the list to Parliament are the people who can either advocate or deny the policies of the ANC.
But that comes down very much, and sorry to interrupt you there, but to a chicken and egg situation where you're always going, do we have a policy in mind and then we appoint or we look to source the kind of people who would support that policy? Or are the policies that are important to the people and who filter up from a provincial level, from really sort of the people, do they work their way up and that influences the policy? Where do you think we are?
The ANC is lost in terms of its policy. They come out of Nasrec and you get a few ministers, cabinet officials and NEC members who still say radical economic transformation will not work. The expropriation of land without compensation is stupidity. And I quote Mr. Derek Hanekom. And so you get all these voices which often contradict each other. Also stemming in this matter is how high up the Zuma team and the Zuma faction is on the list. And I think the branches of the ANC have showed the current leadership of Luthuli House that, Mr. Jacob Zuma, the former president, is not out of power as many would like him to be. In the Free State, at some point, he was #1 on the list. And that was a suggestion that they are not out of power. However, there's another dynamic which comes in. There's the issue of bogus branches, many of them that are still in court. The Eastern Cape is still fighting for survival after the Festival of Chairs. There's the issue in Mpumalanga where, the fight is still on to who the credible and legitimate leadership of the province is. And we know that can affect Nasrec if those allegations are proven to be true. So the ANC has got so much to deal with whilst trying to compile this list of people to take to Parliament. Now, who you take to Parliament and who you take nationally is so important because those are the people who are going to be representatives of the brand ANC leading up to the elections, and it's a 5-year contract. So there's still the split. There's an internal split. There's this dynamic where now Mr. Pule Mabe is out and Mr. Zizi Kodwa has come in and he's the acting spokesperson again. You still have Mr. Senzo Mkhunu running sort of a parallel structure to the Secretary General, and you still have the former president seeming to complete his term on Twitter and setting the discursive narrative in this country. Yes. And it doesn't seem that Mr. Ramaphosa is setting the pace for that. So there is an internal dynamic of a faction in the ANC. And it still looks like people, particularly now that it's going back to KZN, are saying, let us review Nasrec. Let us discuss what happened.
The symbolism of this national list conference being held in Durban, former stronghold of our former president.
It is his stronghold even now. If you see him go out into the streets and campaign for the ANC, and he's made it clear that he's not going to leave the ANC, and I think it would be preposterous for them to expect that of him because he's got such a huge following in that regard. But the other thing to look at is who he brings onto the table and what he brings to the party. It will be interesting to see the reactions they're going to give him in Durban. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, the sort of reactions he gets from branch members and people who still endorse him. It is a significant landmark for him, for former leaders such as Harry Gwala. Those are ANC stalwarts. And I think it was a significant move from there. But I think also Mr. Ramaphosa is trying to ascertain his dominion in the province, because that's a province that was a stronghold. You know, if you win KZN and you win Mpumalanga and you win the Free State, then you've sort of got a dominance of the ANC. However, at this point, half of Mpumalanga is still split. A large unit of KZN still belongs to the heart of Mr. Jacob Zuma. The Free State is still leaning towards him. So it's going to be a difficult list. It's going to be a difficult conference to navigate, because some people, particularly those who endear to the hearts of the former president, are going to say, how far have we come so far as Nasrec is concerned? And I think for those of us who look from the outside, so far as what Nasrec did, the policy proposals, a lot of the things that were mentioned are hard to find. And maybe just in closing, the final example is the ANC made it clear in Nasrec that the term white monopoly capital exists. There is the dominion of white capital, in this country, and it is white. But the president goes out to one of his business briefings and he says, well, you know, white monopoly capital doesn't exist as much as a business forum in this country, and they should be celebrated as our heroes. And I think people are going to call him up on that during these 2 weeks and say, sorry, Mr. President, when we left Nasrec, this was the chorus. What are you now saying? So the ANC is once again split in opinion and ideology.
Continuous disparity of voices.
Continuous disparity of voices.
Thank you very much for your analysis there.